Do a little bit on the presentation, and because we're recording this, there'll be a chance to ask questions, and we'll move to the questions at the end so we can share the mic so that then we can capture it. Otherwise, every question that gets asked, we have to repeat it anyway. So, but there'll be a chance for questions and ideas on this. But I appreciate you coming. The point is we wanted to spend some time to share the ideas of, we had the campus transformation, which was approved, accepted by the board slightly more than a year ago in February 2015, which gave the broad vision of how we wanted to plan out. The first and the biggest priority in the changing of the landscape has really been, how do we close Huxley? And when we purchased Huxley from the city in 2012 and 2013, what we wanted to do was, we knew this was a significant and monumental change in an opportunity for the college, a once in a generation. The Providence College has closed streets before. Annie Street used to run, is now part of Chapel Drive, but that used to run from Admiral Street over to Eaton Street. And that was closed decades and decades ago. But this was an opportunity of, how do we bring the two sides together of the, and once and for all, for someone in 2 years that hasn't ever been to the campus, how do we make it feel like the campus was never divided by a road? And so that was what we have attempted to do. We hired SLAM Collaborative, SLAM Collaborative, based in Gloucester, Connecticut, and a few other spots around the country. They are the architects of the Ruane Center for the Humanities, and we were very impressed with their work there. They made a proposal for us. They're working on a similar transformation at Notre Dame around the football stadium, the holy spot at Notre Dame, their football stadium, and creating additional spaces and more pedestrian and improved access to their football stadium is part of a project. And we're very fortunate to have Dan Cantor here. Dan is a Providence College alum. He's their chief financial officer with the firm, and kind of their executive charged with leading up projects. And we're very fortunate to have Dan. We have a very talented team at SLAM. But Dan helps us because he understands both their world and our world as an alum, and it's been very helpful in us putting the ideas. What Dan's going to do is run through some of the details of the project. The project was given a green light by the Board of Trustees. It's $9.75 million is the price tag, and that in half of that, almost half of that, we have bonded. The other part of that is that includes $2 million to redo the utilities, so the power lines and the phone lines and all that other stuff go underground. In addition to that, one of the key aspects in getting many of the donations for the Ryan Center for Business Studies was how it fit in with the transformed side of campus. From just imagine the Davis door lot, that asphalt, that big asphalt area greeting you, now has changed into a welcoming circle with a lot of green and really creating a new spot on our campus. So Dan will run through this, and then we'll come back and have questions and inputs and ideas as we're going forward on this. So, Dan?
Thanks, John. Thank you for having me. Good to see everyone today. So, as John indicated, we've been working on the transformation for the campus as a whole, and we've met with lots of constituents on the campus. A number of people that are in this room met with us over the last year and a half, 2 years, to talk about how does the campus function at that point in time, how is the campus going to change, and what were the primary functions of the transformation that we want to accomplish. And as you can see, if you're here every day, you know a lot of that's already begun to happen. The relocation of the softball field, the Anderson Stadium, the parking deck. So there's a lot of activity. And the thing we're going to focus on today is really the Huxley transformation, the closing of the street, and that piece of the overall project. So you saw the fly-through. We'll show it again at the end for those that missed it. Just as everyone knows, this is the current campus as it exists today, with Huxley Avenue where it is, dividing the campus. And so what we're going to focus on is what the change is going to be moving forward. So as you can see, Huxley Avenue goes away, and it becomes a pedestrian access through there with a turnaround at the northern edge, which allows cars to come in and be circulated through campus appropriately to where they need to go. So the overall function of what we heard from everyone we met with them and how the campus is orchestrated is trying to minimize the interaction of the pedestrians and the vehicles. That it caused problems, there's safety concerns. It makes sense to push the vehicles to the outside of the campus, to create parking where it makes sense to create parking, and to continue to push on the campus to be the park-like setting that it is in other aspects of the campus. So that's the overall campus. We're going to drill in a little bit. So here, so you can see a little bit better what's happening within the Huxley Way corridor. So to start at the northern end, up here is the entrance would be the new entrance to the campus from that particular area. There will still be the Eaton Street gate by Fennell Hall. There will still be the failing gates on River Ave. So we're not taking those access points out. We want to actually emphasize those to be used more and still utilize the Huxley gate here to access this part of campus. And then the roundabout will allow us to circulate cars both east and west onto the campus to get people to the right location if they need to be on campus, whether it's parking or another building. And then allow for this to be essentially unify west and east of campus, or when I was here, upper and lower. And so that that becomes part of the campus and the campus is no longer divided. So as you move through here, you have the lawn for the School of Business, which becomes integrated with the overall walkway. If you come down the pedestrian way here next to Davis, this is the overlook that we saw in the fly-through. It actually has a view of the Capitol. And then further down as you come down the Huxley Way is to the new pedestrian entrance at Eaton Street. So the concept will be to start this phase and move through all of that work in the coming spring and summer, and then come back around after that's completed and finish the southern exposure of Huxley Way. So to give you a little sense of the scope of the actual work for the Huxley Way project, this is the concept that we're currently looking at with regard to the work that needs to be accomplished in that area. So you have the new Raymond parking lot, the Huxley vehicular gate, Huxley Way, the Capitol Overlook, and the Eaton pedestrian gate. And then there is some additional work that's being considered that we showed in the fly-through to the south of the School of Business to help change that from a vehicular drive to more of a pedestrian access, with the understanding that obviously there needs to be appropriate accommodations for Bedford, which still has the infirmary in it. There may be staffing there, so that's all been considered in that. And the other thing that we often get asked is, it looks like it's all pedestrian walkways. They are all designed to be suitable for emergency vehicles. So emergency access on all of those walkways can be accommodated. They can also accommodate move in and move out and other special events that the college hosts as they deem fit. This is what we have today. Everyone knows it. This is what we expect to see when we're done. So as you come in, there would be a new entry gate and control station, the new permanent RIP the bus pickup, and then the traffic circle, which would be able to designate people to the appropriate parts of campus. The other thing about this that once it gets changed, you remember people have asked about traffic and cars queuing. We actually have done the college has done some traffic studies to analyze that. And in fact, we believe we're going to reduce cars because the only reason you're coming here any longer on Huxley Avenue is to come to the college. So the cars that are continuously using Huxley as just a pure cut through will no longer be utilizing that once they get used to the fact that it's closed. So here's from the other viewpoints. You can see from the south, the control station, the new bus station, the Anderson Stadium. So obviously, again, pedestrian access onto the campus as needed, as well as the vehicles. So this is from the animation. This is an aerial view of a portion of the school business lawn outside of Davis Hall and a view down Huxley corridor to get a better feel sort of overall as to how that fits into the fabric of the campus and how it replaces Huxley Avenue. So here is a shot right now up the hill a little bit from the existing where the softball field is. And this is what we envision the Capitol Overlook will look like. It happens to be a very interesting point on the campus that provides a really nice opportunity for the college to do something special on Huxley Avenue and really change the fabric of what's there. So this would actually give you an opportunity, because you're up high enough to actually view the Capitol, as well as have an interesting gathering spot on the campus. It's really in the heart of the campus, which was a place on campus that essentially cars just drove through every day. Here's another view of that, looking back on the Overlook. You can see, how you can see the grade changes here. It is a challenging site. This part of that project is challenging because of the different grade changes. We think we can make that work very well there, and it provides a really interesting opportunity for some gathering space on campus there. So here's another view from the south looking north up Huxley Ave, what we currently have today. This is actually before the college stopped letting people park on Huxley Avenue. So this was in our archives. So you can see how busy that was. This is what it will look like in the future. So for folks who were never here or hadn't been here in a long time, will forget that Huxley Avenue was there.
It's like, how many people forget that there was a tunnel between Dominic House and Joe's? How many people remember that? You used to have to walk up on top of it to the chain link fence. Yeah, and we took that, what year did we take that down, Warren? 2011? And that dramatically improved, because that was a barrier in the middle of campus. And so what we hope to is even people that are here on a day in and day out basis will quickly forget what it was like and just really appreciate what this means. The other big thing that we hear from the students that live off campus, the 600, 700 students that live off campus, is the feeling that they don't feel really safe when they're walking up Eaton Street or from the side street until they're on campus and to the middle. And walking on Huxley doesn't feel like they're on campus. Now, once they cross the street, they'll be quickly onto the campus, and I think it'll increase their feelings of being safe on that. One, from a perception, but also reality as far as crossing that street and the buses making the wide turn, turning in, and things like that.
So this is another old photo from our archives when we were first starting to work on the project. You can see how busy at pedestrian level Huxley Avenue is. There were cars being parked, there's cars going down. It's before the changes to valet parking and the soccer field or the softball field were put in. And then to give it a different perspective of what that would be like as a pedestrian entering the campus at that same location without all of the cars trying to make their way across that, it creates a very different feeling for all of the folks that use the campus. And here's an aerial view of that pedestrian entrance, which shows obviously the valet parking now in place, the softball field in place, and how that flow would be down Huxley Avenue, and essentially becomes a pedestrian way. Doesn't have the same feel. Feels like the rest of campus does in other parts that people are using in a pure pedestrian fashion.
The other thing I want to point out with the student parking lot, what it has done is it allows students to access, or people to access parking without having to drive through the campus and through the gates. This is kind of similar to what we've done by installing the gates on Cumberland, on Wardlaw and Cumberland Streets. Also, if in the previous one, and when we look at the overview, on Ventura Street, which is now a construction area, which is just to the north of Dorr Hall and the new Ryan Center for Business Studies, that'll be parking that also has the potential to be accessed from outside of the campus. So more and more, as we create parking on the perimeter, it'll allow multiple ways to access parking on our campus. parking without increasing the flow in and out. Not everybody has to come in to the center of the campus in order to distribute the parking. So that's one of the, if you look on the Ventura Street, that's now the laydown area and construction, a lot of construction parking for the School of Business. That's potential, another one, to be able to be accessed from outside of our campus, either from Ventura Street or Dante or Italy Street area. So that's what we're attempting to do, so that pushing traffic to Fennel, to some of these outside parking areas, having really and part of that also may mean us going to a more of a parking policy that's potentially more restrictive as far as people assigned to lots. We're very flexible right now, but unfortunately sometimes on certain timings, certain lots are oversubscribed. More people want to park there than are there. So part of it is to have a certain discipline on our parking. So when you arrive, you know which lot you're going to. It saves on the driving around trying to find a spot. It allows faculty or staff to have clear lots and students to have clear lots.
And parking is a good point. We've done a number of these sessions. We know parking always comes up as a concern from all different constituents on campus. I can promise you it is always a discussion we have. We're always monitoring the number of spots. How many spots does the college have? Where should those spots be? And so as John indicated, we're trying to have those spots be more along the periphery where there's easy access to those. People don't have to travel all the way through campus to get to them. They know where there's parking spaces available, and to have those be accessible potentially not only from on the campus but from the periphery of the campus as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, we need a service security and emergency vehicle access, and we need to be able to provide appropriate handicap accessibility. So that's the trick of having an area controlled and pedestrian, but yet having each building readily serviced. So that's, this isn't like we're making this up. We're the first college to ever do this or institution. So it isn't rocket science, but it is an interesting exercise that balances needs and availability of space, and where you're looking at how to make it utilitarian at the same time, make it aesthetically pleasing. And so that's the challenge that we have when we go through this.
So I can open it up to questions. There are other transformation projects that we're working on. This is the next one that's queued up for actual construction. So the college wanted us to present that piece of it and also be available to take questions from the group, answer any concerns. You can show the animation again.
Are there any questions? One of the other things that this is part of, as really the School of Business will be open for the spring semester in 17. The other big project that SLAM is working on with us is the renovation and expansion of Alberta Hall. And that is going to be a challenging project done over multiple phases, because the building has to be operational during the academic year and also has to accommodate research activity during the summer. So that is a project in the lower part. We also have the Friar Development Center, which will be multiple phases, which includes a basketball practice facility, enclosing that area between Slavin and Alumni, redoing career services, and expanding and redoing 64 Hall. So that's another big project. One of the other things that is in the planning stages is we have to renovate Aquinas. That building won't go on forever. We put a new roof on it, which helps, and made some code improvements. But that's a building that is a large and important part of our student housing that we need to address. And so that planning process is ongoing. When we look at the key aspects of the campus transformation is making improvements in this area campus, the connectivity, the Road Chapel Drive, limiting that as a vehicle access, making that mainly pedestrian, improving access in through the Fennel Gate, and looking at these areas as we do the School of Business and faculty move out of Koffler. How do we deal with needed improvements in Howley, Sullivan, and also Koffler? Is there a better way of doing this and reconfiguring this so that as we're not in this constant stage of renovating one building, moving to the next. Is there a way in looking at it in a different way? Because this is an area and improvements to the studio and the art spaces and the faculty offices in that area is the next big priority. Our first thing in 2010, when we started really this program of transforming the campus, was a 2-year renovation of Harkins Hall, which was an enormous undertaking that happened that had transformed that building and brightened it and made it much more functional, not only on the administrative side, but improving the academic spaces. Because those faculty offices for the the education department, remember, in the center corridor, they were no windows. They were little squares in the center, and we moved them to the side. We added the stacked classrooms and provided service on that. And so we improved the technology in all the classrooms. What came next, while we were doing this, we were doing residence halls and paving and putting concrete on, asphalt sidewalks and things like that. But the next thing was the Ruane Center for the Humanities. And one of the key parts of the Ruane Center for the Humanities is with the change in the curriculum of the Western Civ, we didn't have a place to teach it with the new curriculum. And so what this provided was the lecture halls, but also the seminar rooms, and also allowed us to provide faculty that were in the basement and the upper level of the library to come up out of into a space, a wing that was designed specifically for faculty offices. During that time, Schneider was really at the end of its useful life, and so we renovated and expanded that. We also made improvements in the circle in front of Aquinas, removing the gates in the road behind Harkins. Everybody remember those gates? And and that allowed us to really green the center of campus, which I think really resonates with the students that are here and the people visiting, and even us, I think, to walk through that very beautiful. We also took what was really kind of dead space in Hendricken. We put a turf field in. That's really designed for club and recreational sports. Until we had Anderson Chappie Field built, we used that for a lot of intercollegiate, along with the creation of the track. That has really energized that area. That's not only, I think people all through the community use that for walking and running, and it'll be much more club and intramurals as we move on with the varsity sports taking the other field. But that was dead space. And so one thing about adding athletic fields is they energize what's dead space or unattractive space. And it's relatively cheap to put in a turf field and revitalize an area as it is to say, we're going to put a big building there or a parking lot or something like that. So if you look at it, we have a lot of energized area. Glay Field, with just even looking at that softball field, is a lot more attractive than what we had there, which was basically a bunch of grass and a chain link fence, which is what we had at Hendricken until we built that. So it really changes the whole feel. But also what we've tried to do is do little things like the outside classroom between the library and the wing. The horseshoe that's the corner between Moore and Aquinas is to create little spaces that people can adopt and to own. And so we did that. And there's a bunch of other things that we've done that are Alumni Hall, adding air conditioning and making that so it doesn't look like a high school gym. It looks like, for the women's basketball and volleyball, an exciting place to play. Redoing Slavin, the offices, the spaces in Slavin for clubs, and really redoing the lower level. Something that has really made a big difference on that. The Anderson Chappie Field and the extra parking in the tennis courts, I think, a third of our student population is from Massachusetts, and most of them approach from the Admiral Street side, and you just think of what has changed as you approach campus from, 5 years ago there wasn't even a sign at the corner of Admiral Street and Huxley. It was just chain link fence. And the Schneider looked like something out of a warehouse out of the 1970s coming in there. And now you're going to have a nice brick wall as you go by the stadium. Schneider, the home of the national champions, look nice. But in the end, it's just getting onto the campus that it creates a beauty. Because The one negative as far as recruiting students that the trustees have said and others have said is, I get off the highway, I drive a mile or two to get to the campus, and the neighborhood is down and out. There's boarded up homes, there's overgrown things. And we've tried to reach out and work on the housing side with the Smith Hill and be a positive force in that way. But it's hard to change and project the campus 2 miles out. The one thing we can do is once a family or students or anyone, a prospective employee or a faculty member we're looking to hire, but once they get to the campus, what is the tone that you set on the campus? Does it fit? And one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to be fenced in and blocked off because we're part of the neighborhood and we need to be a good part of the neighborhood because that's what we're about. So we have fencing in certain areas where we need to for security, but one of the things like the whole along Eaton Street, there's very few fencing, there's very few controls on that. Because if you start to put fences all around your campus, it's what are you keeping out? What don't you want in there? What do you need to be protected from? And that's a message I don't think we want, but it's also we have to realize we're in an urban area. And that makes the challenges of the safety and security more challenging in that regard. But what we want to lay out here is a safe environment, a thoughtful environment. Some of it's just the interaction, reducing pedestrian vehicle interactions. Some of it also is the fact of just lighting and security and cameras and things like that to do that. So I think this plan tries to balance all of those things and tries to do it in a way which it'll easier to get on campus, easier to get around on campus, but at the same time, there will be a lot more tranquility in many parts of the campus as a result of this. So, questions or comments? Yes.
On the really steep hill near Gusman, where exactly would there sort of balcony that be overlooking the hilltop be?
Where it is right now, where the crosswalk is elevate that up, move it back a little bit, elevate it up 5 feet. So when you're on that road and that crosswalk, don't stand in the middle of the road thinking about it. But where that is
up in the air.
It's about 5 feet above. So at your eye level is really where the new surface will be. And the benches and the other things will be built up from there. So what we're going to do is elevate it approximately at that spot. Can you go back to that picture on that to give you a sense of that? And one of the things I really would suggest going down there and taking a look, walking, because driving is too distracting. But if you go back, just go back that last one. So here's the crosswalk over here. You see that gate? And it's going to be right in this area, kind of where that car is, and looking out. We're going to have to remove a lot of these trees and replant the trees, new trees there. One of the things when we, with our tree study that we did that's on our website, the arborist said those trees are not really healthy because they were planted too close together. So those trees have not really been able to thrive as it is. And so we're going to take those trees down and replace them. I don't like to take trees down, but those are trees that actually in our study was something that they recommended thinning and reducing. So there'll be things like that that allow us to smooth this sharp edge where the wall is. And also, what this does is just imagine the amount of space, because you have the 2-lane road that goes away, replaced by a sidewalk, reinforced sidewalk that's not as large. But we have 2 sidewalks on either side and 2 walls on either side. And those will be part of the landscape rather than barriers now. So I think we'll be surprised when this is done of how much room is there, how much green space is added as a result of us taking this out. But that's about where it is.
There's a certain amount of grading that goes into that. So the walls that are there, the retaining walls that are there to deal with the street and the utilities, and then the property will be taken out. And that'll be regraded in order to create as gentle a slope as we can in order to create more green space there and pedestrian access.
Lovely. I'll repeat your question then. The question was, will the houses remain from Admiral to Huxley? We own some of them, but most of them we don't own. They're not part of this plan. We, from time to time, neighbors there seek us out to sell. We just bought 2 homes on the north side of Ventura, away from our campus. But generally, as you see Ventura Street, we've just purchased those 2 homes right there. And we also own the one at the end of Admiral and Huxley. You know, we're careful. We don't want to be buying up houses for the sake of buying up houses. As we talk to the neighbors, we had a neighborhood meeting on this last week. And, you know, there's some neighbors that are looking to sell and they're far away. We buy houses if it fits what we need judiciously next to the campus. But you want to keep others in the neighborhood. So it's a balancing act. Would we consider if we could buy all the homes on Huxley? It's not going to happen in any near future. We'll look at each opportunity as it comes, but we don't want to be sucking up the neighborhood. We want to keep the neighborhood and work with it. So it's a balancing act. When we can acquire some homes here that allow ease of parking, help to reduce our impact on the neighborhood, then we want to do it. But on the other hand, a house over here or down the road, we're not really looking to buy up, be in that process. So it's a balancing act, buying houses that help us achieve better access to campus, less disruption in the neighborhood, but not trying to overwhelm the neighborhood.
There was a question over here. So the question is emergency access essentially down Huxley Way. So there is this is drivable. This is also drivable. Yeah. So all of the widths of these walkways, including going through the Overlook, have been designed in order for vehicles, emergency vehicles, or at the campus's discretion for, say, a move-in, move-out. Vehicles can maneuver through there. Correct. They can get out.
Yeah. The other thing we're looking at too for emergency access, this little driveway, which was the original driveway up to Dominic House, is to make that emergency entrance, just to give us a secondary access to Cunningham as a high-rise, so that if there was ever a need to bring a ladder or stuff, it would be able to enter in through here. So we're looking at other alternatives on that, but the key thing through all this was that all our buildings have to have emergency access, so everything is always designed with that in mind, not only from an ambulance, but also from our security, but also from us as servicing it, physical plant and stuff, getting at that, and contractors to getting at an access to the building within reason. That's a standalone project. That we consider. You know, we're focusing on these big projects right now, but this is an interesting idea because overall, this is a beautiful area campus, and it's really relatively underutilized. And so the idea was, is there something we can do or add to that area? And the proposal is a hardscape, maintaining, if we can, the beautiful tree that's here out front of Holly, is to break it up so that it will be a place to congregate. Now, the traffic patterns on campus are going to change when the School of Business opens. The southerly exposure, the fact that a lot of upperclassmen will be taking classes in the business, more of the flow will be coming here, where a lot of these classes are in Feinstein or other places on campus, now will be in this part of campus. So there's going to be a lot more flow of people going through in the vicinity of the Smith Quad. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops. One of the things that when you're doing projects and stuff, you think you can wonder how, you think you know how people are going to use it, and you don't always. So part of it is, we have this plan, let's see what happens, and then respond in that way. So we're not betting that everything is going on. And I'll use the point of the Slavin Atrium. Slavin Atrium was built beautiful, and it was made to bring the outside into the building. And so there were benches inside. There's plantings, some that are still there. But what happened was people were using it to walk through. They weren't using it as active public space. But by adding the high-top tables and the chairs there, making some lighting improvement, putting power strips along the outside wall, and like I said, getting rid of some of the plantings, it dramatically increased the usage of that space. But the original design was a great design, but it didn't recognize how people wanted to use it. And so we identified that and changed to do that. So a lot of what we do is we have a good roadmap with the campus transformation plan and good principles of what we want to follow. But some of it is you need to be a little nimble and respond as we see how people, faculty and staff and students utilize the spaces that we create.
John, it is a good point, though. The plan we're showing here really only focuses on the campus as it is today and how we think it's going to look at the end of this one phase. So like the entire master plan is actually up on the momentum page, and that shows sort of the overall plan on what the campus would look like, say, 5 years from now, once the college had gone through all that process, had looked at the changes that these things made. How's the campus being used? Are those things still relevant? So there were a number of those sort of standalone projects, like the Smith Quad, that we said really the college could do at any time that they felt that it was appropriate to do it. There are certain things like Huxley Avenue where there were certain pieces of surgery that needed to be done. That one was a critical one to really have the impact it needed to have on the rest of the campus. The other one that's not shown on here that the college has been talking about, and John actually mentioned it, was this road here. So it still shows as a road. That's essentially Chapel Way. And there is a plan, if you look at the master plan, that there's a concept where we convert that to pedestrian rather than both pedestrian and vehicular. And we deal with routing vehicles a different way. I know that no one in this room is going to argue the fact that that is a dangerous road. Maybe even more so than Huxley, depending on when people are on it and who's driving through it. Because people the students don't think it's a road. I understand that. I walked down it today. I get it. But right now, this is what we have and what we think it's going to look like when we're done with the Huxley Way phase.
Listen, yes, Steve.
Sure.
Just one other point. John had mentioned changing the pedestrian entrance at Eaton Street there and the safety of students being able to walk up and down Eaton Street on a campus. We've also worked out an agreement with the City of Providence to add 2 crosswalks on Eaton Street, one down at the far right-hand corner opposite the Fennel Gate, and the other one opposite the driveway to the new student parking area there. So there'll be, hopefully sometime this spring or summer, there'll be 2 additional crosswalks on Eaton, and then we'll have the pedestrian entrance on Huxley, which hopefully will make that road a little bit safer as far as students being able to traverse it on foot.
One of the things is we're trying to work with the city, and one of the messages from our neighbors is, especially on game day, like hockey game, is they need relief from the parking in the neighborhood. And so that's something that we've really committed to working with them, and better game day and recognizing which streets to park on and only parking on one side, and working with the city on the enforcement. They keep saying, why can't Providence College do something about it? Well, it's not our property. And a lot of the neighbors seem to think we have a lot of control over City Hall, which we don't. But one of the things is a lot of the concern is how do we respect our neighbors, reduce the impact where we can, and I think we can do a lot more. And so that's one of the things we're going to endeavor this summer, is working with all our parties on campus and working with the city and the neighbors to figure out strategies so that when we have a big hockey game here, people know where to park, and they're not parking on 2 sides of these small, narrow streets and really endangering or blocking driveways or things like that. So we have to do more on that, and we committed to them to do more on that. Yeah, this is an area.
In here?
There is challenges because of the curvature and the grade change on the road. And I know this has been an issue where we have access. We're supposed to only have access or use that when we have a security officer there directing traffic. But the main part about it is the sight lines in that area are not good as far as controlling being able to turn without traffic, relatively high rate of speed. You come out there, cars come up fast on you because one side is below grade and the other side is above grade, and that makes it hard to turn out, and you have to go out into the sidewalk in order to turn. So there's not it's not be able to see the pedestrians with the walls and stuff. It's a little bit of a challenge. Is that your understanding, Mark, from the way I described it?
Average speed of cars traveling on Eaton Street is almost 40 miles an hour. It's 38 miles an hour, believe it or not. And on Admiral Street, it's 27. So we spoke with the city. The city is, they're pretty adamant about this, about not wanting us to be able to create any additional in and outs where the grade starts changing, especially, the difficulty being able to control the speed of that traffic. So, and that's one of the reasons why when we go through the phasing doing the south end of Huxley, we're going to be leaving that traffic light in place. If we eliminated that traffic light, like it was suggested, it would be a raceway. It would from River Avenue, to Douglas. So we looked at it. We've been looking at it for a long time, and the city pretty much confirmed, no, we don't want you to really do that. That's an issue, especially because of the speed.
And also, I think that the neighbors in that area also, they have a sensitivity or concern about the impact that the college has in the neighborhood, as they do in all the surrounding local. I think putting an entranceway there would be a concern, would raise additional concerns by the neighbors in addition to the safety. Are there any more questions? One of the things we're going to do is we're going to put this on the Momentum website. We also has this a feedback button there that you can hit to provide any other feedback or commentary to help us. But we appreciate you taking the time on this. I think this is going to be very exciting, and one of the things that we look back as we approach our 100th anniversary is that this is a kind of a significant switch, just like opening the Ruane Center was, I think, a real kind of important thing. But this will also be for the next 100 years. It'll be a symbol for us that remember Huxley Avenue, the old way of the change. But for the students that come that change every 4 years, it'll be just something. It'll be a nice place to walk and to be and to sit and to meet and talk with their friends. So we're excited about it, and we appreciate the work of Dan's firm. One of the leading visionaries, Kyle Slocum, on this passed away during the process, and a lot of this vision was his vision, and we're very fortunate to have that. College was fortunate to have the opportunity to work with him. This planning has already garnered awards, both at the local and national level, as far as for the vision and the foresight of changing the campus. So this is, I think, it's something that's significant for both us and for SLAM about what this means. And so as we move forward, we've been very fortunate to have been touched by somebody in too short a life, but it's something that is what we build will be something that will benefit multiple generations of Providence College community, but it also be a really harking back to the vision that somebody had that helped us to achieve something I think very special. So thank you all very much. Thank you for Chris for doing it, and Michael for running around with the mics on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I can run the animation again.
And we'll run the animation one more time.